certainly if you play an hour to an hour and a half of pickleball, which was the average, you're going to be able to probably be the equivalent to that 30-minute light jog or that 30-minute brisk walk. Now, what does that lead to? Well, over time, as we're looking at longevity, we know, and there's direct correlation to cardiovascular fitness and overall health and longevity and decrease of what's called all-cause mortality. Hey everybody, back with a brand new Cabral concept. Can't wait to get into today's show. I was reading like the research that I typically do on a daily basis, this one out of Harvard University, and it was an article that just came out about 4 weeks ago. And it was on pickleball and actually how it's being studied in the Apple Heart and Movement Study as to look at the efficacy as actual exercise. Now, one interesting thing I like to always include is how does it factor into longevity from what we call our high performance health perspective. So what this article looks like, or research study, which is really well done, is tracking it using Apple Watches and Apple Heart Health and looking at it compared to tennis and compared to fitness-based levels and how it's actually moving to surpass tennis and may have just done so in August of 2023. So let's dive right into it. This is gonna be a fun show. So it says pickleball started somewhere in the United States in the 1960s and has actually skyrocketed, especially over the last 3 years, where it's grown by over 158%. Now, one of the fun things is we've actually partnered with the Pickler, which is a pickleball franchise that is opening courts and locations all over the United States. I think they're going to have 100 locations within just the next 12 to 18 months. So certainly you can find out more about the Pickler. They're in Utah right now, Colorado, opening in Florida, they're opening in Texas, they're opening all over, and really fun organization. They'll teach pickleball, help train people, and they obviously have all the open courts. So pretty fun organization. I got to speak to George, the founder, just a couple weeks ago. So this isn't where it started though. It's funny because I started teaching high performance health last year, which is really dedicated to advanced healthy biohacking, anti-aging, longevity. We go through all the top 10 causes of mortality. We teach people how to test themselves on a yearly basis for preventative-based medicine and so much more. But pickleball kept popping up as one of the favorite activities of people that are now in their 70s and 80s and older that seems to be replacing tennis and golf. So when I looked at that, I said, well, that's really fascinating because we know the baby boomers right now, huge population generation, and they need to keep themselves active. So when I started to go through this study, which is pretty well done. I mean, when we looked at this, when I'm looking at this right now, number of active participants was close to 1,400, and it spanned from January of 2021 through the end of August 2023. And so when they actually looked at all of the pickleball versus tennis, over the course of that, what is it, about 18 months or so, they found that the majority was actually tennis. However, by the time we got to December 2022 or January 2023, just about a year ago, pickleball went on a basically hockey stick trajectory, now surpassing, at least for the Apple Health study, tennis. Pretty remarkable if you ask me, right? So pickleball, I find it to be more accessible to more people. It's done with doubles and it's closer courts and you're not having to hit the ball as hard. And again, I know people will call me out on that for sure. That's okay. I myself have not gotten into pickleball yet. I know that I would love it. So it's not about me saying I would love it or not. I know for sure I would love it, which is one of the reasons and basically the main reason why I'm not playing pickleball right now. Because once I get into something, I get like overly obsessed about it. And I'm like, oh, I just want to play this all the time. So right now I'm staying clear right now, but in the future, no doubt about it, I'd love to be able to play myself. So the oldest participant in the study was 84 and was playing tennis, and 84 in pickleball. And then we had someone in tennis, 92 years old. However, the average age, I think you might find this interesting, for pickleball with just at least one pickleball game is 44 years old. But those people that play pickleball more than 10 times for the study were average age of 51 years old. You can see how it starts to skew a little bit older. With tennis, just one tennis match, 40 years old, 10 or more, 45 years old. So in both subject groups, they skewed older the more you played. Again, I find that to be fascinating, but maybe more free time, maybe less options, or what seems to be maybe less options. They're not doing the same things maybe as they were younger. They're choosing something, an activity that they feel is safer, that they can really enjoy with their friends. And I think that's probably wise. I think that's probably smart, especially when you get to see the stats on fitness. So average age pickleball with 10 or more, and this study, 51 years old. Average age for tennis, 45. All right. We already gave you the age ranges. Percentage that was male, 64% for pickleball, and percentage that was male for tennis, 71%. Okay, now let's go over the actual duration and intensity. I found this to be really important. So the distribution of workouts with a duration of 10 minutes to 4 hours are plotted on the graph. And I'm going to link this up, of course, for you. If you actually want to see this study, head on over to stephencabral.com/2876, and we will definitely link it up inside of High Performance Health. If you want to learn more about High Performance Health, of course, feel free to check it out. That's at highperformancehealth.org. Okay, so when we look at this, on average, pickleball workouts were longer with greater variability in time played, averaging 90 minutes, plus or minus 47 minutes. What does that mean? Well, it literally means average time was an hour and a half, but people may have played for a half hour, or they may have played for 2.5 hours almost, right? Because 47 minutes is kind of close to an hour, right? 60 minutes. So, but pickleball on average, 90 minutes. Tennis on average was 81 minutes, plus or minus 38. So we're getting way more variability with pickleball, anywhere from essentially, let's just do the math. I mean, literally about a half hour to 2.5 hours, where tennis is somewhere around an hour to about 2 hours maximum. And I think that this kind of goes along with all the people and all the friends that I have and colleagues that play pickleball. They'll get into it and they will literally play for 3 hours. So, well, again, I think that goes to the addictive factor of it, and that you're able to keep on keeping on. So now let's go over to the intensity. And it goes over now average peak heart rate during a workout. You might think, well, pickleball, your heart rate has to probably be lower because you're able to play longer. Where tennis, maybe it's a little higher because you're playing a shorter amount of time. I also felt that way too, because in tennis, sometimes you're playing singles, not doubles, and you need to cover a lot more court in tennis, so you're most likely running a bit more. Now, the study proved that out to a degree, but nowhere near as much of a discrepancy as I thought I would see. So let's see if I can find that average heart rate for you. I know that I can see the scatter plot right here, but I'm going to see if this is going to be easier. Yes, there it is. Okay, so average heart rate for tennis versus pickleball was 9 beats higher per minute. So on average, the heart rate for tennis was 152 beats per minute. And the average heartbeat for pickleball was 143 beats per minute. So both of them really strong, meaning like 143 beats per minute for pickleball, way higher than I thought it was going to be. Like that skewed way higher. So now there were some outliers, of course, that were lower, but that's pretty impressive. And so then when we look below, the only part that I feel is off, and it's simply because of how it was measured, they look at zone 1, zone 2 to 3, which is moderate intensity, and zone 4 to 5, which is vigorous. So this is not typically how we track this in the health and fitness-based industry. So that's the only part that's off. Because if you're at 143 beats per minute, let's do the math on that. So if you want to calculate your max heart rate, they did theirs a little differently. That's why it's fine. But for the average individual, just the average normal individual, like most of us are, we're just going to do 220 minus our age. So let's say the average pickleball person is 50. So all I'm going to do is 220 minus 50. 150, and that's going to give you about your max heart rate of 170. Okay, so now let's just say we want to take zone 3. We're going to multiply that by about 70%. So we're just going to take that and we're going to look at 70% of heart rate. It's about 120. Okay, so when we look at that and we know the average heart rate was 143, well, they're saying that the majority of the time, at around 30% of the time, someone's in zone 2 to zone 3. Now, zone 2, keep in mind, is, well, let's just do the math for you on zone 2. It's 17 points less, but 170 times, and we're going to do this at 0.6, which is on the higher end of that. It's 100. Okay, so when we look at that, we're looking at technically 102 and 119, but I like to round 100 to 120. It's much easier to memorize. So for these individuals, they're spending 32% of the time in what would be zone 2 to zone 3. And then 70% of the time, their heart rate's going to be much higher. It's going to be closer to that zone 4 to maybe even zone 5. But that's not how the graph is set up. The graph is actually set up percentage of time, 70% for pickleball, a little higher, 60-something% for tennis is zone 1 light. And only 10% of the time for pickleball, well, less than that, it's like 5% to 10% for tennis is zone 4 to 5. The numbers don't add up. So what we have to look at is forget about on this graph the zone that you're in. And I'm making a really big point to this because in high performance health, we teach you that really 3 to 4 days a week, you want to be in that zone 2 area for good cardiovascular fitness, not counting your strength training. And pickleball does count for that. Like that's my big takeaway from this is that you can actually use pickleball, especially if you track your heart rate. You can track your heart rate now with what? A Garmin. You can track it with a Apple heart rate watch. You can even track it with your Oura Ring now. But an easy way to do it too is if you have the Polar heart rate monitor, that's going to be like in the perfect way to track it, right? Because like that's the most accurate. And you'll see for yourself, are you between 100 and 120? So between the ages of about 40 and 60 years old, you can just use that range 100 to 120. You can refine it more by using the 220 minus your age if you'd like. But that's going to keep you in zone 2 to 3 cardio. And that's absolutely amazing for cardiovascular fitness. And so my big takeaway is that you could literally replace one of your jogs or your elliptical or whatever with an hour to an hour and a half of pickleball play. It can't be exactly the same 30 minutes for 30 minutes because there is going to be a lot of more light time where the heart rate's typically just dropping back and recovering. But certainly if you play an hour to an hour and a half of pickleball, which was the average, you're going to be able to probably be the equivalent to that 30-minute light jog or that 30-minute brisk walk. So I thought that that was fantastic to see. Now, what does that lead to? Well, over time, as we're looking at longevity, we know, and there's direct correlation to cardiovascular fitness and overall health and longevity and decrease of what's called all-cause mortality. So in pickleball, not only are you getting your 10,000 steps in, right? You're getting your zone 2 to zone 3 cardio. That counts as well for cardiovascular health. So helping with blood pressure, heart disease, circulation, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. So, I mean, I'm a big proponent of pickleball. I've yet to play it, but I know for sure that in my future, it'll be something that I look to get into. And for all the people out there thinking about getting into pickleball or they're playing it right now, know that you're actually getting a great cardiovascular based workout as long as you are keeping your heart rate up to that zone 2, zone 3. So hopefully today's show was helpful. Again, I'll link up the study in all the show notes at stevencabral.com/2876. Do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.